Hi folks, welcome to the MWIS Winter Planner, this updated on Friday the 18th of November. Now in this video we're going to have a look at the prospects for winter weather conditions in the weeks ahead from the general guidance we can get from the forecast modelling. We'll consider the likelihood of frozen terrain and the possibility of lying snow across the mountains as well, and the general weather story over the next week or so. In the short term, having had some very mild weather through November so far, we've got a chillier weather regime that is around. Some snow to be found across higher terrain this weekend, particularly in Scotland. The week ahead, more of the same really, with temperatures hovering near to freezing point on those higher mountains in Scotland, close to some tops in England and Wales occasionally, with some freeze and thaw there, but still early days to get any decent accumulations. It's a generally unsettled story for the week ahead, it must be said. Let's have a look at some charts then, and starting off with the general weather story over the next few weeks. And this is the pressure pattern. This is a weekly pressure anomaly. So we're showing the lower than average pressure indicated by the bluey green colours, and the pinker colours would indicate higher than average pressure over the course of the full 7-day period, and that's from Monday to Monday through next week. And we're seeing a weather pattern that is very similar to what we've had in the past week or more, where low pressure is situated near and just to the west of us, broadly influencing the British Isles. We're seeing airflows from the south or southwest circulating around these lows, but the source of the air coming from the North Atlantic, some of it with its origins from Greenland and Canada. So it's a relatively chilly air mass, but not deeply cold. High pressure is situated well to the north across Scandinavia. Into the second week of the forecast, and indications favour low pressure still being situated towards the west of us. We see high pressure, though, expanding somewhat across Scandinavia into Eastern Europe, and the airflow pattern is still predominantly from the south, maybe south-southwest coming in from the Atlantic, and still a little bit mixed, but trying to draw in more of a continental influence from the southeast with time. It may be that that week sees a gradual transition to higher pressure and some quieter weather getting in, but really it looks as though until late November we're still seeing this rather mixed or fairly unsettled story coming in from the Atlantic. Temperatures then may be milder for a time with the airflow from the south a little bit nearer to average than earlier on in the month though. The general thinking into the first part of December then is that high pressure begins to expand a little bit further across the British Isles and generally toward the north of the country, so quieter weather patterns would become established, and that previous low pressure has weakened away, and a generally drier situation would evolve in this pattern. In terms of temperatures, many indications hovering still near to average conditions as we go into December, so nothing deeply cold, albeit chillier than we've seen in recent times. We just need to tap in to a more directly Scandinavian airflow to get more properly cold weather conditions coming in. We're watching that at this stage. Looking at conditions in the shorter term, this is the freezing level chart, which shows you the height that we'll find 0 Celsius in metres and gives us the good steer then for where the terrain is frozen. And we begin this weekend with that value quite close to the highest mountain tops in Scotland, between around 1100 and 1300 metres, so some freezing conditions then on those high tops. Maybe even touch of frost first thing Saturday morning in a few valleys and glens where skies have cleared overnight. Now, as we take things onwards into Saturday evening and night, the general air mass is a chilly one, and as we get some precipitation running into that, it will help to chill the air even further. So that freezing level, by the time we get towards first light on Sunday, is down even to 800 metres or perhaps below in some parts of the Highlands, and that gives the prospect then for some snowfall to even quite modest elevations, even temporarily, possibly down towards the southern uplands and across the tops of the lakes and the Pennines. But any accumulations below about 700 metres would be temporary. It may, though, leave a dusting on some of the tops. The freezing level stays quite low across the south and eastern Highlands into Sunday. It'll be a bit higher nearer to the western coast, probably above 1,000 metres. And the freezing level then is just about above the highest tops in England and Wales. Let's run that story on just to give the general feel for the week ahead. And we see a very similar sort of story, really. occasionally that freezing level drops further with the scope for a touch of frost overnight to lowest slopes. But during the daytimes, generally up towards 1,000 to 1,200 metres, occasionally a bit lower where some precipitation is around. So just really those highest of the tops seeing conditions at around freezing point. Lower down, still generally the terrain is unfrozen and very wet conditions underfoot, having had a lot of rain in recent times. Rivers and streams still very much in spate or flood. This model chart will show you the snow depth. Now, this is an ongoing story in any given 6-hour period, so it's not the total accumulation. It would be whatever the situation is through that time. And as we start Saturday morning, we have just maybe a little bit showing up across the tops of the Cairngorms, and that's about all we've got to begin the weekend. But notice as we take that story onwards overnight into Sunday, as we see some precipitation coming in and some snow then accumulating, as mentioned, across the tops in the Highlands. So do expect the higher mountains, the Munros, and maybe even a bit lower down than that, could have some lying snow as we go into Sunday daytime. Nothing really showing up on this model for England and Wales, maybe just a dusting possible on some of those highest tops, but that like to thaw during the daytime. As we go onwards through the week ahead, then, still showing the suggestion for some lying snow across the higher mountains in Scotland. The values would indicate how much it would be in centimetres, so it is adjusting, and maybe where some of that has been a bit more persistent, a few slopes could have a bit more of a covering. So the prospect then for some good wintry looking conditions across those higher mountains during the week ahead. It's confined to Scotland, it looks like, at this stage through into midweek, but the model chart maintains the scope for some lying snow on the tops. Finally, just to give you a run through the weather maps themselves, and this is Saturday's situation, we have the remnants of a front from previous days still affecting the eastern regions, so some rather damp, murky conditions around associated with that. Some rain, some drizzle, some sleet and snow on the very highest tops in Scotland. The south to southwesterly wind will strengthen across western regions later in the day. Quite variable winds across the Highlands, mostly light for England and Wales. The front out to the west sweeps eastwards overnight. That brings that rain and hill snow then into the early hours of Sunday, most of it breaking up and pushing eastwards into the daytime. It may just linger across eastern Scotland with some sleet and snow through the day, and showers will then follow from the west. And these rain on lower slopes, but some hail mixed in at times. The odd heavy shower, maybe around the west coast of Wales, could have an isolated rumble of thunder. Significant wind chill where exposed across higher terrain. Quite a complicated forecast into early next week. It's basically unsettled, low pressure is in charge, exact positions of fronts very uncertain, some rain across many places, some sleet and some hill snow then across the higher mountain tops, but a lot of it will fall as rain or sleet. Wind speeds will vary considerably, but it could still be a rather blustery story across many higher areas. Again, treat the detail with a lot of caution into midweek. The idea of maybe windows of brighter weather, but never too far from the next fronts coming in. Some showers around at times, particularly in more western regions. These again could contain some hail. The chart for Wednesday would just continue this general theme of fronts trying to push in from the Atlantic. Some windy conditions, some rather cool conditions, the idea of some rain showers and some snow across the very highest tops. Some hail maybe mixed in at times. So early days in the winter season, we shall keep you up to date with these conditions in this video every week. Thanks for watching today. Bye for now.